different languages.
India.
All this is celebrating diversity.
Wait.
I like you, Masai. This is the Street Quiz Show.
Nachukua fursa hii kukaribisha katika kipindi chako cha kila wiki.
Neno hili fiqh ni ufahamu, yani kufahamu kitu.
La jirani nlipi, la mkubwa nlipi, la mtoto nlipi, la usiku nlipi, la mchana nlipi. Hiyo
away, and the rest of your day is also likely to be full of discipline and quality, inshallah. Tip 2.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
That 4 years after the country divorced the 763 education system and became darling with the 844 system, now we are on the verge of, again, fully adopting the competence-based curriculum, talking about the CBC, something that has been eating the airwaves for quite some time now. Amid dissenting voices from various quarters, the government is focused fully on implementing the competence-based curriculum. This is as the Education CS, Professor George Magoha, has come out strongly to support it and ensure its implementation. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the live Real Talk. And my name is Faisal, Kassim, where we'll be talking about CBC, competence-based curriculum, something that is very soon going to be part of our life. Going is the 844 system, and we'll be talking about the competency of our children. And joining me tonight to discuss about this topic, we have the Senior Deputy Director at the Kenya Institute for Curriculum Development, Madam Jacqueline. Karibu.
Asante.
So happy to have you here.
Thank you.
And of course, last but not least, we have my teacher to many, Mr. Hamis, who is the principal at the Muslim Academy. Mr. Hamis, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Madam Catherine, maybe just a quick one for the benefit of our viewers who are definitely going to be part of this conversation by texting us on 22951. And remember, you can get us on all social media platforms at Horizon TV Kenya. Madam Jacqueline, tell us about the CBC.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. The competency-based curriculum is a curriculum we want to have that emphasizes what a learner can do. We know that the 844 has been very dear to us, but it is not serving the purpose for which education should serve. When we have complaints that the learners are coming out without the necessary skills, then actually we are doing them a disservice. And so we want to bring in a change that will allow for us to ensure that the learners who come out of the system have the necessary skills.
What kind of changes are we looking at in the CBC that's not currently in the 844 and was not there in the 763 education system?
I think largely we are looking at two things: teaching styles and methodology, and assessment. Teaching, because in the 844 and even just the previous curriculum we had, there is always the power of teaching in the teacher. So the teacher tells the learners wait to be told, and they say back what the teacher has said.
Yeah.
That way they don't take the initiative to learn.
So it is one-sided, coming from the teacher to the students.
Yes,
Interesting.
but in the competency-based curriculum, we want to make the learner a fully part of the learning system so that the child is allowed to actually get information.
Why do you think that's important in this day and age?
Because we are in a knowledge-based economy, and that simply means that we have all the knowledge we have around us. It is how we use that knowledge that is important. So we cannot sit back with a child who is in a knowledge economy and assume that that child does not know what they are doing.
By knowledge economy, as opposed to the old traditional system where we expect it's quite traditional and structural, where the child only gets information, we assume he or she gets information from the parents and the teachers. So by us opening up this avenue of education, we are opening up the avenue for other sources to come in and feed this child. Don't you think that's dangerous?
No, it's not dangerous. The child is in an environment. That environment is not just the teacher and the parent. It is also the circumstances where the child is. There is media. And really you find that the children sometimes are even ahead of the teacher in terms of the knowledge they have. So if a child is ahead of the teacher in some knowledge and the teacher is starting from where the child is already ahead, then there is a conflict. So all we are trying to do is to balance, so that the teacher allows the child to say what they know, and from that point then you can teach them. The reason we are doing that is because we don't expect a child doesn't come to school with an empty slate. We call it tabula rasa. They come with already knowledge they have from home, from the environment they have. So what we need to do in the school system is to pick them from where that knowledge is and move them forward, not to assume that they don't have any knowledge. And in the same vein, we shouldn't assume that a child cannot gain knowledge on their own, because they do. So we need to facilitate them to grow in that knowledge. When they take the initiative, then the initiative to learn is also on them.
Thanks so
and
much.
That is very critical in this day.
We'll come back and talk about how exactly, what structures do we put in place to ensure that these children are getting this knowledge from the said sources of knowledge and not just from every Tom, Dick and Harry. Mr. Hamis, you have wealth of experience for as far as teaching is concerned, over 20 years. You know, we're looking at more than 20 years in the game. What's your take as a teacher on competence-based curriculum?
As a teacher, I want to say that competency-based curriculum is the way to go. Just like Madam has mentioned, there has been an assumption from quite a number of teachers that knowledge is owned by teachers. They think that they are the owners of knowledge. And they despise the learners. They think that they are supposed to give to the learners and expect the learners to receive the way they have given them.
Yeah.
But as opposed to that, the CBC, the competency-based curriculum, gives the power also to the learner to be able to explore what he or she knows. And as they come to the classroom, teachers should appreciate that the learners have something right from the environment, from home and the likes.
Interesting. Media is a double-edged sword. When looking at both social and mainstream media, it is a double-edged sword. So when we are opening up this avenue for children to walk in and explore, what structures do we put in place to ensure that whatever they're getting from the media, be it social or mainstream, is the best thing that it would benefit the students, fellow students in class, and even the teachers?
The teachers are guided by the curriculum. And
teachers are guided by the curriculum.
And
from the competence-based curriculum, what you told me, it is that it's going to be a two-way traffic. It's going to be, the student is going to be the focal point, as opposed to the current 844 system where it's the teacher giving only.
Exactly. The classroom situation is such that the teacher facilitates the learning. And therefore, the curriculum guides the teacher to be able to lay the concept on the table and make the learners to be the focal point by engaging them to participate in the learning process. So the teacher does not look like he is the final owner of the knowledge, but he exposes the learners through the the methodology that Madam mentioned, which of course the teachers have, they are undergoing training. They've been given the training right from last year and even this year. On Monday, there'll be some trainings also going on. So the teachers are going to be well equipped with the necessary pedagogical approaches, the necessary methodology to be able to ignite the learning in a classroom situation.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. Madam Jacqueline, you were among the people in the forefront in developing the competence-based curriculum, being the Senior Deputy Director at the KICD. If I may ask, for purpose of our viewers who are all watching, what guided the development of this competence-based curriculum?
The guidance we have emanates from our national goals of education. Because as a country, we have to set a path that we choose to have. Now we have 8 national goals of education. And those goals guide what society expects. For example, the first goal is that we want to be patriotic, we want to be united. And so as we look at these goals, we have goals that a goal that looks at self-development, so that you can be able to contribute to society. We have a goal on moral values, moral and religious values. We have a goal on appreciating our indigenous culture. And we even appreciating that we have varied and our cultures are indigenous and they are varied. We also have a goal which relates to our knowledge of the international community. Now, when we put all this, basically what that means is that we try to prepare a system or a curriculum that enables a child or a learner to be able to live within the environment in this country and also be able to fit in the global world. Now, based on that, the first thing we do is then to also get views from Kenyans. We call it a needs assessment. It's the first stage in curriculum. We do a needs assessment where we are asking from all the stakeholders, the learners themselves, the teachers, the industry where these children are going to go, the different levels of education that we have, because then we want to ask ourselves what should be the center of focus as we're doing this curriculum. That information from that needs assessment report helps us to decide even what subjects we want to have.
So you want to tell me that this is something that you started with it from a scratch. It was purely guided on objectives and the national goals.
Yes. We actually carried out a needs assessment. But before that needs assessment, you remember that we had a curriculum review in 2002. And we implemented that curriculum in 2003. So getting to 2009, it was actually beyond. We should have done what we call an evaluation of that system, or the curriculum we had reviewed by 2006. But we did the evaluation in 2009. Now, why do we do that? It's because it's a check to see whether that curriculum we have in place is still serving the needs. Because, you know, society is dynamic, and therefore the needs change every day. So as a curriculum center, we know that at least every 5 years we should review a curriculum so that we are in sync with what is in society.
I'm glad that you told me it is something that you got it from the scratch. And how do you respond to this? This is an article in one of our dailies written by an assistant professor at Georgetown University saying, and the headline is quite bold, that copy-paste curriculum not for Kenya. So it is not too late to scrap the Ministry of Education's introduction to the so-called CBC, poorly designed initiative which so far has been horrendously bungled at every stage of implementation. We need to reform our education system, but this is not the way to do it. Teachers do not like the change. Parents are unaware of real content of the change and fear that it'll hurt already the overstretched budget. This is what's coming. And he is saying that this is a copy-based, the CBC, it is kind of copied to the American system, which launched it in 1966.
I wouldn't know what copy and paste means, because you see, we are trained teachers. The team at KICD are Kenyans who are trained teachers by profession, and we are tasked to make that curriculum. We've been in school before. We have taught for years. And so as we come to the institute, we are not coming there not knowing what curriculum is about, because we have taught it. Now, if somebody says we have copied and pasted, I would wish that they show us that document that we copied from and pasted. Because we have expertise in this country and we never appreciate it, which is very unfortunate. The curriculum is not even done by KICD officers. Yes, we are teachers by profession. We are there as secretaries of every subject. The real people who do the curriculum are our teachers who are teaching in the schools. Because by virtue of our act, and if you care to read our act, we prepare the curriculum through a panel system. Now that panel system allows for practicing teachers, and we don't pick just anybody. They have to be teachers in practice. So for every single subject that we have at any level, we have a panel of 20. These 20 are drawn from practicing teachers. If it's early childhood curriculum, then we'll pick from the early childhood team. We have quality assurance and standards officers on the team. We have teacher trainers, and we have university lecturers. We also have field officers. Now, I don't understand why we would be thinking that all these brains can come and sit together and not be able to come out with a curriculum, so that we are copy pasting. So if we have copy pasted, I would want to be given that we copied from.
The original document.
Yeah, because there must be a document then that we are being told we copied from. It would be good to see that document and see whether we have really copied and pasted what others have done.
Thank you so much, Madam Jacqueline, for that. Mr. Hamisi, maybe I come to you. You mentioned about the children, the students becoming the focal point and of the education. Every system that focuses on this set of education, it's focused towards developing that student at the end of the day. And here we're looking at two things from my point of view, from where I'm sitting. I'm looking at the system, I'm looking at the implementers of this particular system. Currently in the 844 system, we're having the teachers who are the one leading, they're facilitating everything. The buck stops with them. And this is in a way integrated with our African culture in the sense that the children are there to be seen and not to be heard. So how do we, again, now transform these teachers who are supposed to be the implementers of this curriculum and move them from that comfort zone, kill their egos, bring them into a level whereby now you can get knowledge from the students as well? How do you do that?
I think the first thing is the teachers should be able to embrace the change. And by these, through the trainings, the teachers should be able to understand that CBC is there, they are supposed to embrace it. They have to get involved in understanding what CBC is all about at all levels. And then appreciate that students or learners, they have a place in learning. They should not think that they are the owners of knowledge. Once they do that, then they are good to go. And quite a number of teachers, like I mentioned earlier, they have been trained. And the training is an ongoing thing. For us to understand the CBC, it's not one training, two trainings. The trainings have to go on. At the moment, as I mentioned, on Monday, they will start training the teachers who are going to take up the grade 4. The grade 1, 2, 3, they did the trainings in April. Last year, there were also trainings. So teachers have to appreciate change. And those who do not, then they will be, phased out.
Interesting.
It's important that teachers appreciate the change.
Wow.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And that's how we wrap up our first segment of Live Real Talk tonight. Remember, we are talking about competence-based curriculum. We are streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Kindly share with us your comments, tweet, Facebook us, and drop your comments on the YouTube channel. This is Horizon TV. Don't go away because we're coming back after this very short break.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Quote of the day. Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu said, "Do not quarrel and do not create differences among yourselves. hold fast to the rope of Allah and maintain unity in your ranks.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Thank you so much, Suleiman Achasa of Tumbura, there, my producer and director this evening. Thank you so much, Issa Bakarim Tamma, the gallery. Shout out to you as well. Miss Jacqueline, we are talking about the CBC, and we do appreciate your effort and the way you've responded to the claims that definitely these efforts of professionals sitting down and not copy-pasting. Thank you so much for that. Inclusivity in developing this particular curriculum, how was it? Did you involve the parents? Did you involve the teachers? How exactly did you go about it? Because you're looking at even the Kenyan National Union of Teachers, of which we reached out for record purposes. I think I need to face this camera. For record purposes, we reached out to Honorable Sosion. I personally called him. We reached out to him to have him represented in this show, but he said he's out of town and he would send someone. That we did not get. Of course, we wanted all voices represented in this show because this is your show. So, Miss Jacqueline,
Yes.
how much did you include people in the process of developing this particular curriculum? Particularly the stakeholders, I'm talking about teachers in this case.
We have involved everybody across the board. Like I'd indicated, we started with the needs assessment because there are stages through which we do the curriculum. The first being the needs assessment, and we did a nationwide needs assessment, seeking views from everybody who is a stakeholder in education. We went to the villages, we went to the Jua Kali, we went to parents, we went to religious groups, we went to the learners themselves. We went to industry that takes those children to get their views in terms of the current system.
Maybe would you mind sharing with us the criteria that you used in selecting the samples that you are interviewing? Was it snowball sampling? Was it random sampling? What method, particularly in analysis, did you use when doing the sampling and getting people's views?
I think because we were using a mixed method, we actually had purposive sampling and we also had random sampling. Purposive because there are certain levels that you must be able to get people. For example, when we were targeting special needs. Special needs, because there are several categories, we couldn't do just a random sample. We had to ensure that we purposely sampled the different categories. We have, for instance, the visually impaired, the hearing impaired. So there were different levels of that. But we ensured that our study, because that is actually research, and we actually went through it as research ought to have been done. And incidentally, the Kenya National Union of Teachers were actually part of our respondents.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Moving
I'd love
forward,
to know the feedback.
Moving forward, we can share the report. We actually have the needs assessment report, and I would actually be able to share with it even after the show.
I'd really love it.
Moving forward, we then, because once you have the report, you then ask yourself what next. Now, when we did that needs assessment, we actually had the first conference in January of 2016. I mean, in March of 2016 at KICC, and we were there today for the third conference.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
In that conference, we presented the needs assessment. We had over 700 people who came, invited from all walks of life, not being there, and they even presented a paper.
Interesting.
We actually were presenting the needs assessment to them and saying, this is what we have found. Can you give us the go-ahead so that we can now move to the next stage when we start thinking, what do we put in the curriculum? And we were given that nod. In fact, in that first conference, I think it was presided over by the Deputy President, His Honorable Ruto. And so we went back and now developed what we are referring to as the Basic Education Curriculum Framework. Basically, that is a condensed document that provides for us what we are proposing to be taught from the early childhood level, which we are now calling early years education, up to the senior secondary, which is now our high school at the moment. And again, in 2017, in January, we called the second conference and we presented the framework and we said, this is what we have put in place. We would like you to let us know whether this is good enough for us to go ahead. 2017. So in 2016, we had the first conference. In 2017, we had the second conference. Now, as we did that, then we also requested that we would like a group of stakeholders to be able to assist us in the work. And the cabinet secretary then, who was Dr. Matiang'i, did put in a group that we are referring to as the National Steering Committee. This is a group that was about 60 people, again drawn from different walks of life. We have the civil society, we had our teachers associations for primary, secondary, private schools, special needs. We had KUPPET, we had NAT. We had anybody who we could put on board. And the reason for this was that as we made the discussions, we would come back to them as different constituencies because we know they hold a large group of people. And we would discuss with them. And once we make a decision, they were given the authority to discuss this with their constituencies. And if anything came up, they were free to come back with us. And we kept working until 2018. And if I remember very well, on the 3rd or 4th of January 2018, the person who announced that we are going for a national rollout was Honorable Sosion, because he was part of the steering committee that had made that decision.
Interesting. Just a clarification. Is it true that NAT officials were locked out of the education conference today at the KICC?
I wouldn't know that because we sent invitations. There was an invitation from the cabinet secretary. And all those people who came in, they had invitations or had registered on the website. It was a free entry.
So in other
as
words,
long as you had registered or you had an invitation letter.
So it's not true that they were locked out?
No, they weren't locked out.
They were not locked out?
They were not locked out.
Thank
because
you so
they
much.
have
And
an
we can put your
invitation.
record on that.
They have an invitation from the cabinet secretary.
Interesting.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Mr. Hamisi.
Yes.
We're looking at CBC. I don't know what teachers from your parents, particularly from your institutions, because we're having dissenting views from various quarters saying that the parents were not included in this. And yet today I saw a member from the Kenya National Parents Association presenting a paper at the KICC today. But again, still there are some quarters believing that parents were not adequately involved in this, and it's going to be quote-unquote costly in their already overstretched budgets. Have you engaged parents in your institution regarding this new education system?
At school level, we have done that. But I also wanted to echo what Madam Jacqueline has mentioned. I happen to have attended the second conference, and I saw Sosion presenting a paper. And I was only shocked that this time again, when I was attending the third conference, I didn't see them presenting a paper. But at school level, I want to tell you that I wouldn't speak for other schools, but particularly in our school, whenever we have the parents' meetings, we educate them on this CBC curriculum. There is also at KEPSA, at Kenya Private Schools Association level, where we, of course we are a private school.
That they also presented today.
They also presented today. Madam Mudeu Kasanga from Lukenya, who is the chairperson, she also presented a paper today. And we're in line with what is happening at the KICD. The KEPSA also, they have worked on a manual. They already have a manual for the parents. And we have bought as a school the manual, and we have given to the parents. so that they also get abreast with what is happening. They should be able to understand when you're talking about the 2633 curriculum, what is it all about? They should be able to understand all these levels, and they should also be able to understand where do they come in. I have my daughter who is in grade 3, and she comes home with a lot of questions. She comes home with tasks, and we get engaged, me and my wife and the mother, we get engaged, and it's quite good, as opposed to what used to happen when kids could come with a lot of questions and just filling up their books and all that stuff. So for me, the parents are well aware of what is happening. So, and I would also ask the schools to ensure that when they have their parents' meetings, they educate the parents on the new curriculum.
Exactly.
It's very important.
That was going to be my next question. I mean, do you think despite the KICD rolled out plans to train teachers, do you think it's also important to do some civic awareness to the parents as well of the students as well, to know their role in this CBC implementation?
It is very important. It's very important that the government, and I was very happy, the national chairperson, Parents Association was also there, and he gave his paper, and it was in line with what we were talking about.
Interesting.
That the parents appreciate the new curriculum.
So whose responsibility is it going to be to do the civic education to the parents? Is it the school or the government? Who do you look at?
I think it is all of us, because in the first place,
most of
us are parents.
But the back has to stop somewhere. Is it the government? Should you look at the government to facilitate these trainings? Is it the government to direct the schools to facilitate this training to the parents? Who exactly should we look up to in terms of giving direction to this training?
I think there are different mechanisms that we can use. As my colleague has indicated, everybody's trying to see what part they can play. As KICD, we have developed, I think even the manual that they are developing would be in line with the guidelines that we have developed, because this was the first time that we are outrightly, holding parents responsible. And we have done guidelines on parental engagement and empowerment, basically just a document that helps to show ways in which the parents can be engaged. Now, largely, as he does indicate, the first place that we would start that is at the school level, because there's a mechanism of the Parents Association at the school. Every school has a Parents Association, and they have got representatives. These are the same ones, I think, from whom they elect, and they have the national team. So at the school level, just the way parents will always go to school and be guided on one or two things, they'll also be being guided about what they're learning in school. What we are emphasizing, and I like what he said about the parents being engaged with the child, what we are emphasizing is that parents should go out of their way to know what their children are doing in school. It is actually a responsibility for each one of us, because when we send the child to school, we have certain expectations. How do we have expectations when we don't bother what it is the child is doing? So we are simply saying that, yes, you've brought the child to school. It is also important that you know what the child is learning in school, so that as a parent you can support that child, because the child needs a smooth ground between the school and the home. So when the teacher does their job, then the parent should also be supportive. And that is why the child is coming home. And yes, they usually come home with homework. It's only that the homework is different. Now the homework is engaging, not just making a child sit down and add maths in a booklet and then go to sleep. No, it is the child coming, asking questions. The reason for that is because they are also gaining, they are learning from that. When we say the children are constructing knowledge, we are simply giving them the opportunity to think through their minds and, ask questions. When you ask questions, you learn more than when you're told.
Interesting. That is something to think about. It's a food for thought, based on the fact that a lot of parents in this day and age have become passive parents. They don't get time to engage with their children who are students. Very few times we get parents interacting with their children and actually helping their children to do their homeworks. Now this homework is not a written homework that you can simply give instruction. This is an engaging kind of homework. Now if the previous one was difficult for us, what about this latter one? that's something to think about, because right now we have to go on a break and we are coming back with more questions. Please do not go back. I need to appreciate and acknowledge Mariam Dawood on YouTube saying, school is meant for strengthening good morals, not encouraging controversies that are now everywhere. How are our children protected from such issues? Keep them coming, keep tweeting. Send us comments on Facebook and YouTube, and we will read them, and inshallah we will get them answered right here on Live Real Talk. Please don't go away.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Quote of the day. Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu said, "Do not quarrel and do not create differences among yourselves. Hold fast to the rope of Allah and maintain unity in your ranks."
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
And unfortunately, the last segment of Live Real Talk. Of course, with me in studio, I have Mrs. Jacqueline Onyango, who is the Senior Deputy Director at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, and I have the Principal of Muslim Academy, Mr. Hamis. Now, Ms. Jacqueline, I want to quote a paragraph from Huka Wario, who's a columnist and a member of Moran Publishers writing team for the CBC and the Deputy SG of the Creative Writers Association of Kenya, as well as the chair of Egerton University Governing Council. He says, and I quote, "According to CBC design posted by the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, the curriculum seeks to make learners competent in 7 key areas: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, problem solving, creativity and imagination, citizenship, digital literacy, learning, and self-efficacy." My attention is drawn to the last point, self-efficacy, which focuses more on self-awareness. At the same time, we have this global agenda that is being pushed, particularly by the West, on matters sexuality. So, being an African kind of a setup who are majorly religious, either Muslim, Christian, Hindu, of which we all know the stand of these religious institutions or religious following in regarding matters gayism and lesbianism, an agenda that really is trying to be imposed on us. Where does it come in? We are encouraging self-awareness, self-knowledge, self-efficacy. And at the same point, we're having this sexuality agenda. How do we balance?
Thank you very much. I think we've brought in self-efficacy. Basically, the basis of that is that I must know who I am. And I must have an identity. I must acknowledge what my strengths and weaknesses are. And if I'm able to do that, then there's nothing I'll not be able to move into. And why are we saying that? It's because, remember, we are saying that we want every individual learner, as young as they may be, to begin knowing the responsibility they have to themselves. Because even as they are growing up, as individuals, there are things they must do to be able to move forward with the assistance we give them. For example, when children are learning to sit to crawl and to learn. If that child doesn't make the effort to crawl,
Yes.
you will never make them crawl. You will encourage them to crawl, but they
True.
have to take that courage, take the confidence, and take that step to move.
Yeah.
As they move, then they understand, oh, I am able to do this, and therefore they move forward. Now, we don't want that to be lost. We want us to grow that, because this is what helps the child as they move forward to even know what their strength is as they move into career paths. So we are connecting that self-efficacy with several other things. I know that, yes, we are talking about self-awareness, and you're talking about aspects that are not, sexuality, aspects that probably are coming into modern day Kenya now that we are dealing with.
Yes.
As far as we are concerned, when we are teaching the children about their growth and development, we are actually referring to it as human sexuality. And the reason for that is that because we know as that we grow from one age to the other, there are different developments in our bodies that happen that help us to grow to the next stage. And it's important that we teach these children that. And that's what we are referring to as human sexuality. Being able to tell them that as you grow, there are changes that are going to happen in your body. This is what that change means. And therefore help them to understand themselves in terms of their growth, and of course then to be able to know what limits they have in terms of their growth and relationships. This is very critical, because as young people, if they are not guided, then they will get lost. And that is why even with the education system, even with the 844 we have now, that is still embedded. We have a subject we've been calling life skills.
Life skills, yeah.
A subject that we don't necessarily teach, but
it was introduced after the review of 2008?
Not 2008, that was in 2006.
2006?
Yes.
That's when the life skills was introduced.
Yes, and we made it a standalone subject. Why? Because we were saying we must strengthen the capacities of young people. For instance, we have aspects we are talking about the peer challenges that they have. We are talking about friendship. What does friendship mean, and how far does friendship go? Because it's important that they are guided in these aspects. Now, we cannot shy away from doing that, because we owe it to our children to guide them. And that is why now, even though life skills is not a standalone subject in the new curriculum until they go to about grade 7, we are still having all those aspects embedded in the curriculum. As they move from one stage to the other, they are guided appropriately. And, as I said, we are trying to answer to Kenyans' needs, and we are very conscious of our constitution, the requirements of our constitution. And so we will not go against those. We have our religious teams who are a great backup to us. And so as we work with them, we agree on what is appropriate. We call it appropriate information for our children. And that is what is embedded in the curriculum. Because one of the rights of the children have is the right to protection. And if we don't protect them, then we cannot complain when things go wrong. So it is our duty for us, in our understanding, as teachers, as educators, that part of the responsibility we have is actually to protect our children by giving them appropriate knowledge based on the ages that they are at.
Interesting.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. I guess that clearly addresses the matters of sexuality, although we're still looking for a distinction. Where do we draw? This is up to the level that we're teaching you, and go up to this level. Okay, I think it needs to come out during the trainings, to the teachers who are supposed to be the implementers of this, And Mr. Messi,
I think just to add on what Madam Jacqueline has mentioned, I think as the curriculum develops from the PP1, PP2, as it goes on and progressively, then these issues are addressed and they're embedded, as she has correctly mentioned, in the curriculum. So the teachers, if they are well trained, they should be able to, see what to give to a PP1, to a PP2, to a grade 1, grade 2, 3, and the likes. And what I like about the CBC is that, as opposed to what we used to have, like we have the topic, the subtopic, the objective, and the likes. Now there is a proper arrangement where we have the strand, the sub-strand, the key inquiry questions. We have also the outcomes, the learning outcomes, then the key inquiry questions. All this, will bring in the issue of participation of the learners. And it's very interesting.
Maybe another key question that I think it's important for as far as this conversation on CBC is concerned. The CBC is meant to promote some things that are not there in the 844. Talk about art, talk about performing art, talk about visual art, and some of those things. And on the other hand, for as far as performing art in Kenya is concerned, it has been infringed with some level of immorality that sells so much. The kind of music that's hitting our airwaves, hitting the headlines, every day getting airplays on the radio and even on social media and even in mainstream media, the kind of music that's being played, it's nothing but immorality being promoted. And here we are, want to encourage these students, these learners, to nurture their talent, to grow in their talent. Yet, on the other hand, it is immorality that sells. How are we planning to address this immorality issue and instill morality in them developing, in the process of them developing their arts and their careers and their talents?
I think, as correctly mentioned, within the curriculum, they'll be able to, once the learner gets into a pathway of performing art, I think throughout the learning process, he or she will be able to understand where is the
so it's systematic, it is
systematic.
structural.
But
again, I'm looking at
words,
societal now. This issue is societal. We're having immorality
Yes.
that has spread so much in the society. And if this kid is going to be in the performing art, then he's going to be looking at the role models at the national level. And these people who are singing immoral lines, performing immoral things, are the ones getting hyped up, held high by the society, getting most money. So if I am to go into performing arts, for example, then that is the pathway that I'm likely to take because I want to be, quote unquote, successful in my career. So how are you planning to address this immorality issue with the CBC?
I think one of the pillars of the CBC is what we are referring to as values.
Yes.
And this we actually pick it first from the Constitution, but again,
Yeah.
as we did the summative evaluation, one of the biggest things that came out is that our value system is very low.
Okay.
That Kenyans, we know the laws are there, we break the laws, and we
Yeah.
want to justify. And so we need to ask ourselves as a nation, what is it that we want? If we want to perpetuate the wrong things, then we are going to lose ourselves. So it's a choice we have to make. Now, the reason why we are emphasizing on values is because ideally education provides the positive.
Yeah.
But again, we know that in society there must be negatives to balance. Probably it is a challenge that we are given.
Yes.
So we want to ensure that we enhance we strengthen the skills of these learners. And so when you look at the competences that we are picking, they are competences that we expect as they are able to acquire these competences, then they can make decisions from a point of knowledge. Music on its own is not immoral. The choice of singing immoral music is an individual choice because there's a lot of music that is beautiful. Generally, it is what we ourselves will want to perpetuate. So we will not shy away from allowing a child who is good in music, because if they are playing the flute, there's no immorality in playing the flute. But like you rightly say, our society also has models, has people who model the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And then as young people, when they look at this and they think that this is the way to go, they would be going in the wrong direction. So education must be able to help them. And that is why we are talking of decision making. When we are talking of critical thinking and problem solving, for instance, my problem is that I need a job and I need money. But what kind of job am I going to get? Is it a job that I'll be proud of and can help somebody else, for example? So these are the decisions that these children have to make. But by and large, you're very right. Society must also be able to boost what the child is learning. If the child is learning and society is continually giving negativity, then that child is confused. and so can easily go into that negativity without a thought. So that is why we are saying that we need first as parents to make sure that we are guiding our children as we expect the teachers to guide, because parents in this country are very good at blaming the teacher when anything goes wrong with the learners.
True.
But where are they? Because if you are with the teacher, probably you would have mitigated this. Now, beyond the parent, there's the whole society. So we have actually one of the principles that we have is community service learning.
Interesting.
And this community service learning will require that us as a community also play a part in the growing up of these children. Curriculum is organized in 3 facets: the formal, which is now the curriculum that we are giving in school; the informal, where the learners will learn through clubs and participation in other activities; but there is the informal, where they observe and learn from society. And that society is you and me. So if I portray negative behavior, then I must be sure that there is a young person who is observing me and will pick up that negative behavior. So basically, whether we like it or not, education requires that all of us play a part. So if we are supposed to be role models, then we must model the right thing, so that our children can be able to ape the right thing. But if we constantly show them negativity, then they have no choice but to pick that negativity.
Mr. Hamis, your parting shot this evening.
Mine, as a teacher, I want to say that CBC is the way to go.
Yes.
And those who have not embraced it, I want to call upon them to embrace CBC, because there is nothing other than going forward. So we have to move together.
And your fellow colleagues who maybe think it's not the best time for this CBC, what do you have to tell?
I think my fellow teachers, they should get into the training and get on board, because they have no choice.
The bus is leaving.
The bus is leaving, and
It
they
left.
have to get left long time ago. So yeah. Okay.
Okay.
And to the parents also, they have to ensure that they give support. Like you mentioned about, absentee parents. We have a big problem with the parents. The parents, they have to get involved in the learning of their children. Sometimes you call for meetings and you don't find, quorum. Maybe you find that there are ladies only.
Particularly the men folk, actually. I was just about to say that, particularly the men folk, yeah?
The men are very busy, very busy.
We are victims, number one.
Yes, the men are very busy. They say they are busy looking for sustenance for the family, and they don't get involved in what is happening. And yet they are the pillars of the families. So they should get involved also.
Guilty as charged.
Yes.
Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
Madam Jacqueline, your parting shot this evening.
My parting shot is we have an opportunity to improve our system and offer a better lifeline for our children. So let's all get on board. Whatever needs to be corrected, let's all work together, so that at the end of the day, we can be able to say we have contributed to a change that is a positive change and leading us to where we want to go by 2030.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Of course, there are concerns raised about the expense and the budgetary issues for as far as implementing the CBC is concerned. Some people complaining that this might be expensive because you're looking at iPads, laptops, computers, whiteboards, projectors, name them, technology. I want to finish with this quote from a very wise man that I hold quite dearly. He said, if you think education is expensive, then try ignorance. My name is Faisal Kassim, and this has been the Live Real Talk. See you next week, same place, same time.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.